Hey everyone, good morning, and we're going to be going over the more key events section, 5.2 on KeyHold. So let's get started. So it's exactly like it sounds. It's going to be when you hold a key down, and there's just little differences that kind of set this thing up. So what happens if we press and hold a key for a while? So we've done on key press, we've done on key release, right? On key hold is when we hold it down. So let's take a look, and remember, just kind of read this, and we want to try to guess what it's going to do. So there's a counter. That counter is a label, okay? And then it says on key hold, counter dot value plus equals 1. So whenever I'm holding the key down, it's going to add 1 to the value of the counter. So let's see. All right, we got there. Here's my keyboard. Press and hold a key, and you see things getting bigger. Easy enough. Okay. It could be any key. I could press different keys, like I'll press A. Now I'll press J. Right? So anything works. And then using the keys parameter. So one thing you may have noticed up here in this example is this says keys. Normally when we do on key press, it says key. Right? So how the parameter on key hold keys and not key, what's going on? Well, it takes multiple keys. So like it says, we're going to learn more about lists later, but here's the general idea, like for what this statement is saying right here in this little snippet of code. For the function on key hold, the parameter is keys. So any button that I press is in that parameter keys, right? If the letter Z is in the list keys. So what that means is there is a list, basically, of all of the, trying to raise this high, all of the keys that are on this keyboard. Basically, there's a list of them. And that list is called keys, right? So if the button you're pressing, Z, is in that list called keys, then we're going to do counter plus 1, right? So now I can hit all these different buttons. Nothing's really going to happen. But then as soon as I hit the letter Z, now that's how I do it. Okay. So this is how I select like specific keys to be able to do that. So we run the code. Let's see what happens here. On key hold, if keys is equal to Z. So this is how we used to do it with key press and key release, right? We would say if keys is equal to something. It doesn't work. So for example, I'm going to hit Z, nothing happens. If I hit any buttons, nothing happens, right? So just be careful. If you're holding a key, it's worded a little differently, okay? It needs to be worded like this. So checkpoint 1. Let's see. In the previous broken example, what error message did Python print when it tries and fails to check if Z is being held? Nothing showed up. So yeah, you really got to know what you're doing, because otherwise you're just it's not gonna tell you anything. Testing for multiple keys. The whole point of using a list is to let us test if the user is holding down multiple keys at once. So let's see. So on key, the function on key hold, parameter keys. If Z in the list keys and X is in keys, then we're gonna, okay. So really, if, thinking back to our complex conditionals, this should only work when both of these keys are being held down at the same exact time. And the reason is because of that and operator right there, right? And means both those things have to be happening. So I will hold down Z. Whoop. I'll hold down Z, nothing happens. I'll hold down X, nothing happens. Now I'll hold down both of those together, and the counter goes up. So now that I'm pressing and holding both of those keys, the counter goes up. In the previous example, what happens if we use OR instead? Well, if we use OR, only one of those things has to happen. So I'm going to assume that when I press Z, goes up. Now I'll press X, goes up. What happens if I hit both of them? So OR means that one or two, like one or the other or both works, right? So that's pretty cool. The counter increases if either or both X or Z are held. There we go. Moving a shape. One common use of key hold is to move a shape while it's being pressed. So here's an example. So we have a circle assigned to the variable called dot. And it's saying, okay, when you hold the key down, if right is in the list keys, then we're going to move that dot. We're going to add 1 to the x coordinate. So it's going to move to the right. So let me hold down the right button. Ah, that's cool. Right? If you wanted it to move more, maybe I can make that 56. Yeah, 5. Now it's going to move faster, right? That's cool. In the previous example, how do we make the dot respond appropriately to the down arrow instead of the right arrow? Well, let's try. If down is in key, then remember, I wouldn't want the x coordinate to change. If I'm pressing down, I would want the y coordinate to change. So I'm going to say dot center y. And then now when I press down, it goes down. Okay? So use center y of center x. Yep. Use change right to down and use, oh, there we go. So it's B. For me. Might be a different letter for you, but. Checkpoint 4. In the previous example, what happens if we change 1 to 10? So I kind of did that before. I changed it to 5. And what happens when we make it a bigger number? It goes way faster, right? Because it's changing more pixels every time I hold that down. So moves 10 times faster. In the previous example, we can test when the dot reaches the right edge of the canvas. When that happens, we can wrap around, as we've already seen in earlier exercises. So we do that like. So if right in keys, it moves the x coordinate 10 to the right. If dot dot left, and so that's kind of a weird thing right there. So you may need to remember what that is. Now I gotta remember where my, there we go. So dot left, that's a position property. So check it out right there. If I say whatever that object, now I can't remember what it was called. I think it was dot. So dot left, I'm talking about the left-hand side of whatever my object is. Okay? So dot left, that's the left-hand side. So if the left-hand side of dot is greater than or equal to 400, so that means if the left-hand side of this dot right here gets past x equals 400, then it's going to set the right side of the dot equal to 0. So what does that mean? That means, right, so right now it's not there, it's not there. Now that happens. So right here, remember this is the left-hand side. So the left-hand side of this dot isn't greater than 400 yet. But as I get there, as soon as that left side went away, now the right side was set equal to 0 and it moved over, right? So that's a nice, easy way to kind of set that up. So remember, these are position properties or position methods. All right. So run the code, solving exercises. Exercises with onKeyHold can be difficult because we can't run onKeyHold exactly one time. This makes it hard. When apps use onKeyHold, the auto grader may need to call onKeyHold many times. To save space, some test cases will use onKeyHold keys, comma, n. This calls onKeyHold n number of times with the keys parameter. So this is like multiple parameters for their little auto grader. Okay. So just know when you see this in the test cases, this is them doing something a little more fancy. So if we look at the difference between a value, we can. So let's see what this is doing. onKeyHold keys. Let's see. If right in keys, move the dot to the right plus 10. If dot left, okay, uncomment this line and run again. So this is running onKeyHolds right 5 times. Let's see what it did. All right, so if I reset that and run, it's got the dot right there. Now it's running this function. It's inputting the word right 5 times. So it should move 50 to the right. So let's see, where's it at now? It's at 200. Now if I uncomment this line and run it, it's at 2, right? So it moved 5 times. It ran that function 5 times. So just so you know, when you see that, that's them being able to use the auto grader and check what we're doing. Okay? So go ahead and try the exercises. Remember, the next step you have is 5.22. We only need 3 points worth. So you could do a couple medium, you could do all the easy ones, you could do whatever you need to get those 3 points, and I will see you all later.